Welcome to another episode of See One Beautiful Soul. What could we work on as a world?
We're not loving enough to ourselves, fellow Jews, non-nuclear families.
Oh, yeah.
That is what's spilling out. All of the problems that we face, whether it's climate or Russia, stem from a spiritual and an emotional problem. I don't know whether to be more scared or more sad.
The goal is to change the narrative around that neighborhood. These are not hot spots. These are neighborhoods that we're going to call healing spaces. Kids that grow up in these neighborhoods should not only remember gun violence, right? Some happy moments for them so that they also remember there was a lot of good people that, cared about them.
When I asked you what was the biggest thing you had to forgive, I didn't expect you to say that, but I'm so glad you did, because I'm sure there's a lot of people with unfinished business in Olam Hazeh in this world. And I think that's such a heroic thing to start with.
Because if I have to forgive God for every bad thing that happens, that means I have to praise God for every good thing that happened. Could God have stopped it? Yes. But I think God lets us, human beings, run the world. I don't feel like I have to forgive God for this because I don't understand God's ways or the reason that things happen. So I can't even pretend to understand it. When I bring my kid to get a shot at the doctor, he cries and thinks this doctor hates him. And we know the doctor doesn't hate him. We know the doctor is doing something for his benefit.
We are standing up and we're standing together. And I hope that justice continues to be served.
I'm talking about with the divide is they're purposely making us focus on other issues or divisions that they know are trigger points for our society to cause, in some instances, chaos.
And we're just standing back and watching. And I don't think as humans, we want to be a part of that. We've done that before. Wounding of other people, even if we think that they are somehow not on the right path that we want them to be on, it's just never going to be okay. This is where it's ultimate freedom, when we have choice. And if we choose to love, instead of making love a feeling, let's say we have attraction. I can promise you this, if you've made it as long as I have, there's going to be seasons when that attraction wanes.
The idea with yoga, there are levels, right? You start with the physical practice, then there is the breathing, there is the meditation, and then different levels that you can go in. A number of times, the pain that we feel is actually not related to just the pain. It's actually created by our mind. And having an ability to kind of really calm your mind down and really let the body kind of do its work is actually one of the most important things that anybody suffering from chronic pain can do.
The advice you have for having a successful marriage.
Democracy requires a certain understanding, not only of yourself, but of other people that you're relating to.
Right.
And what happens is in democracy, there are people that may want this, but they don't want that. It is up to you to give to one another, to be able to see that's a good idea. Why don't we try that? Because if we do this, then we do that, things may work out.
Brody's all about reincarnation.
Well, obviously, you're an old soul. Hello.
Why would you make more souls if you can just reuse them?
Exactly. According to Torah, we're all just shards of the same one soul.
Should you confront somebody or offer them a place at the table or to have that kind of dialogue? And right now, because of the current events of the world, it's much easier, I think, to cancel than to engage.
And yet it's so not easy. It's turning us into mutes. Yes. Because then we can't talk.
You can't talk.
If you trace every single piece of abuse, you're going to find one commonality, and that is that someone was judged very harshly somewhere, and it triggered them to perform some sort of act of violence. I mean, I've had hundreds of conversations on the street in my documentaries and then, on this show, and it's always coming down to that.
All these points of connection that are just floating around, and every once in a while, we can catch a glimpse.
Yeah.
And if we catch a glimpse of the points of connection, it gives us hope that there's going to be more of them as we continue to be our authentic selves.
He says, but do you know what it feels that nobody wants to talk to you and everybody hates you and everybody wants to kill you? You have to stay home because of you're afraid to go out and you find out who your real friends are.
If we're looking at this through God's eyes, right? Because this is, we're going to talk about God. This is a God podcast type of thing.
Exactly.
We are living in a world where people are absolutely unconscious
They are walking around, not hearing, seeing, feeling. Can the typical person who's not a neuroscientist take care of their brain?
They really do go hand in hand. I consider the brain like the computer, right? And then the mind as the software. You need to have software in order for the brain to function, but you also need to have a functioning computer. It has to have the correct power supply and all of that in order for the software to even work. So you can do all the mantras in the world, but if you're not taking care of your brain, it doesn't really matter.
A lot of people see you only by your identity and not, I should quote MLK, the content of your character. A lot of Jews today are fighting and growing up with this sense that they always have to fight it. There's no room for I just want to thrive as a Jewish person.
See One Beautiful Soul. My rabbi actually dared me to make a podcast about relationships.
You were the first person to teach me.
I wanted to be more specific. My superpower, like what do I have wisdom in? And then it hit me. I was in the shower and I started singing. See one beautiful soul.
I call myself Hebrew.
Gosh, if everyone saw each other as one soul, right? Like you're here, I'm here, your brother and sister and your family, then no one would ever want to hurt anybody. Have the opportunity to build bridges. About the 3 F's. What's the biggest forgiveness story you have? What's a failure? What's freedom? It's about what they've accomplished in a soulful way, like spiritually what they've accomplished. And that is so empowering.